Hey friends, good morning, happy Sunday. I'm taking you on a walk. I had a memory that came up this morning from Facebook from a few years ago. It was around the time when I was planning to prepare to support a loved one through a major surgery. And at the time, I knew that I would be spending multiple weeks away from home and in a space that wasn't necessarily aligned with how I generally choose to live, how I generally choose to surround myself. And I remember the conversation with this one person that sparked here's what I love about conversations. Conversations help me get clarity, and I think when we're open to doing this, I think it would do this for most of us. Conversations help me get clarity around my languaging, the words. Conversations help me get clarity around my beliefs, because the more that we converse, and I'm not talking about arguments, I'm talking about open conversations where both parties feel safe, both parties feel like they can be open and vulnerable. Those give us a chance to get really clear on what we believe, on what we feel, and what that looks like. And for me personally, one of the things it does for me in that clarity is it often gives me new word phrases, structures, ideas, things that just, drop in, shall we say. And so I remember this specific conversation I was having around doing this and understanding, making the decision to support this person, knowing that it didn't fully support my lifestyle preferences and choices. For example, cold, fresh juice is really important to me. And at that time, it was paramount to me, my healing, and everything I was going through. It's still very important to me. And so at the time, I knew that I would not have as easy of access to obtaining that where I would be sane, right? So that's just one example. Or another example might be cleaning products, right? I choose to use either very clean, natural cleaning products, or I choose to use Norwex. I love Norwex, Norwex brand and Norwex rags, which, not a commercial, I don't sell it, you can't buy anything from me. But I love that because it's chemical-free cleaning. And this other place does not really lean that direction, right? So our lifestyles and our values, some of our beliefs didn't line up. And during this conversation with this person, their suggestion was, why would you even bother going? Like, why are you going to put yourself in this position? And as I was talking through it, and like I said, that helps me bring clarity, it helps me bring language. The thought that came to mind for me was that I'm going to go, and I'm consciously going, and so I'm making this decision to go, and I'm going to lean into it as a conscious compromise. Conscious choices, conscious compromise. I don't know if that phrase, conscious compromise, had been used elsewhere. I'd never heard it before, so I thought that was brilliant. I still think it's brilliant, which is why I wanted to come and chat with you about it. But giving some background about how it kind of showed up in my life. It was during this period when I knew I was making a commitment to support a loved one in a space that I knew would be a compromise So if I'm going to do that, and that's the decision I can make, how can I make it most align to myself? How can I plan ahead to make it the most beneficial for myself? And so I saw this as an opportunity of conscious compromise. What I want you to consider today is, we can look at this as the election is coming, which if you know me, you know I'm not taking it that direction, but you could look at it from that perspective. Conscious compromise. Can we lean in? Can we be curious about what people that maybe don't look like us, don't look like us, don't act like us, and can you be curious about that? Or you can also look at it from a perspective of where in your life right now are you running into a conflict? Where in your life right now are you feeling like you are being asked to show up in a way, or you're desiring, let's say it that way. You're desiring to show up in a place or a way that is important to you, and you're trying to navigate, or you're navigating, you're not trying to, you are navigating. How can I do this in a way that is aligned with myself, while also recognizing that it is a compromise? And maybe the holidays coming up is a perfect time to have this conversation. Maybe we'll go deeper with this conversation as the holidays approach, this conscious compromise. Because how many of you, raise your hand, how many of you dread going to someone's house for the holidays? You know that maybe they're not going to cook the way that you cook. You know that maybe they're going to watch things that you don't want to watch. You know that it's repeating the same conversations again and again, and maybe you absolutely love all of it. And that's great too. But recognizing, if I'm going to make this decision, I'm going to make it consciously. I'm going to go consciously, and I'm also going to do what I can to keep myself, my beliefs, my values, my integrity intact. So, for example, if I know that I am, we just keep showing up on here with this hair crazy. Good thing you don't care, or good thing I don't care. We're just going to keep talking. I feel like after all of the walking, you've seen my hair in so many ways. Now it just kind of doesn't matter anymore. So when I show up with my hair beautiful and amazing, you're going to be blown away. That's really not the conversation. It's a conscious compromise, right? That is an area where I consciously compromise. I'd rather show up and share a message than not show up because I'm so worried about my hair. There we go. That's how it can apply. But what I want you to consider is there a way for you to do the thing because you know it matters to you? The people matter to you. The other decision, right, is you cross those people out of your life. You can certainly do that if that's what you choose. In my case, I didn't want to do that. And there are a lot of people in my life that I recognize don't eat the way that I eat, don't live the way that I live, don't choose to, for example, if I'm home alone, 99% of the time, 9 times out of 10, I would say, it's quiet in the home. I don't have music. I don't have the TV on. I don't have anything in the background, right? When I show up to other people's places, that's not always the case, right? So those are conscious compromise. I want to make that decision because I care more about that person, right? I care about that person. And also, maybe let's take more out of it. It's not that I care more about that person than myself. That's not what I'm saying. I care about that person because it makes me want to continue showing up and be in a space with them while understanding that I am making a conscious compromise. I am compromising something about how I normally live and experience life. And here's what I think. I think we grow better and stronger, we expand when we are willing to show up in places that don't always look like how we do it at home, right? Hopefully your home is a space where you feel like it's your sanctuary. You get to do things the way you want to do things. You get to eat food and make choices the way that you want to eat and make choices. You get to listen to the things that you want to listen to. You get to watch the television shows that you want to watch. Or like me, you watch nothing during the day or when you're by yourself, because that's a choice that you want to make. I don't listen to loud, heavy music because that's not what I enjoy, right? But when I'm with my husband, occasionally, and even he knows, he makes conscious compromises because he knows that I'm not really interested in that style of music, even though he loves it. So he will make a conscious compromise to, we both probably make conscious compromises to kind of land somewhere in the middle, right? And so understanding that there's a time and a place for us to stand firm on our beliefs, what we believe, and maybe there's a time and a place for us to release relationships, right? If you continually have to show up and be the one consciously compromising, and maybe that's not reciprocated, maybe that is a relationship for you to be curious about in how is it serving you? What does that look like? What does that mean? And at the same time, are there spaces where you know you're going to be putting yourself, let's go back to the holidays, are there spaces where you know you're going to be putting yourself, and for years on end you complain, but you show up anyway, and then you continue to complain about it? Can you instead recognize that you're making a conscious compromise, and maybe you do something that aligns with your integrity to contribute to the situation? So, for example, when I did that a few years ago, I was able to purchase a number of juices ahead of time. I mentioned earlier that I love a good cold pressed fresh juice, right? So I was able to purchase a number of juices ahead of time. I made some as well, and then I froze it and thawed them as desired so that I still had access to it. It was a conscious compromise. I didn't have my juicers with me, but it was a way for me to still partake in something that is meaningful to me, right? So what is something, if you're experiencing a spot in your life, or you're thinking about the holidays coming and you know that they're not going to be exactly the way that you want them, what is something you can do that honors your integrity while also keeping intact the relationship that matters to you, right? And I think that's important. It's important to recognize, like, I am going to this space, and it's not necessarily the space where I have designed it to align with all of my pure values, whatever that is for you. Because I recognize those two things, what can I do ahead of time to prep so that I'm consciously compromising rather than feeling like I'm being run over, right? I used to talk about this in the form of expectations. If we understand, like, there's that one saying, and I don't remember it exactly, but there's that one saying, hurt me once, shame on you. Hurt me twice, shame on me, right? And we could unpack that. We're not going to right now. But basically, it's saying, like, if you know that this is going to happen when you show up at that place, and you continue to show up there, whose fault is that? Right? We could blame it on the person. We could blame it on you for showing up, but does that really help? No. So there's an expectation, like, I understand that person A is just going to be this way, and I can pray and believe that they'll change, and I can lean into different energy around it, and that's all fine and well and good. And also, I can, in doing that, right, isn't it my responsibility to bring energy around it that I want to experience? And that's what I'm talking about, is person A, Susie Q, might not change her energy around the holiday. She might show up the same way that Susie Q has been showing up for the last 20 years. And if I go into it with the assumption that this time is going to be different, Susie Q is going to be different, that's not taking over the control, the faculty of yourself, right? So what if instead you walk into that situation and you have consciously compromised ahead of time, you've planned for it, So you're then walking into it with different energy, right? If you know that Susie Q has always shown up this way for the last 20 years, and you walk in because you have that history, that experience, that repeated pattern, right? You can now look at it and say, okay, I'm going anyway because the experience, the overall experience matters to me. And also I'm going to do something ahead of time that feels like I've protected myself, my energy. So I'm consciously compromising rather than just showing up and winging it. Does that make sense? It makes sense in my brain. And the memory came up today and I thought, you know what, this is a great conversation, especially as we started talking and got into the idea around the holidays, because I know the holidays are a contentious time for a lot of people. And I think it's important for us to realize, like, you have a couple choices. You can choose not to go, or you can choose to take back the power you have around your energy and how you prepare for it, how you lean into it, and can you consciously compromise instead of just winging it and being frustrated the whole time, because that certainly doesn't help the energy of the situation. I would love to hear what you think about this, and how is this showing up in your life? What does this look like? Another way that, as we're talking it through, another way that I see this being part of my arena right now is as I consciously compromise in how I'm spending my time and my energy as I'm rebuilding my business alongside of building eWomen Network, right? So in the past, and I'm still navigating this piece, but I am leaning into the conscious piece of it. How can I do this in a conscious way with intention? In the past, people have always known that they can reach out to me and say, hey, Jen, let's get together. And then we get together, and then it's a pick your brain, or it's a give me advice, or what do you think about this? And I give and give and give and give and give. And I show up to those things, and I do that. And I've loved it in the past. Selfishly, I love it because I feel like I am contributing to something, and that's meaningful to me. It always has been, probably always will be. And also, I'm recognizing that the more I do that, then the less time I have to give to myself, my business, and to my members and guests at eWomen Network. And what I'm really realizing is that I have, since returning from the Camino and my long walks every day, I returned knowing that I wanted to keep my long walks a part of my life, that was meaningful to me. Maybe I'm not walking 10 miles every day, but can I go for 2 or 3 hours a couple days a week is what my intention is. And I've realized that has already started to fallen off because I'm not allowing myself to be conscious around it. I'm allowing these other expectations, these other responsibilities, this other way of being, this pre-Camino way of being, I'm allowing that to not take over is not the right word, that feels too strong, but to still exist. And the awareness, right? I've talked about awareness many, many times. Awareness of it is the first key, right? So I'm aware of it now, and especially having this conversation, I can see it even more clearly, which if you were with me at the beginning, I mentioned how I love having conversations because conversations help me bring more clarity to my own thinking. And that's exactly what this is doing for me in this moment. Where am I currently compromising, but it's not conscious? And can we bring in the conscious piece and then make it feel better for, myself? Because that's the point. Like, how can I consciously compromise so I feel better about the situation? So how can I consciously compromise what needs to maybe soften, what maybe needs to fall away, so that I can have back the walks that I so fell in love with? 2 to 3 hours a couple days a week, and then shorter walks the other days. So that'll be an interesting conversation. That'll be an interesting revelation as I lean into that and uncover that. So if nothing else, thank you for being here and letting me talk through that piece. But for you, I would love to hear, where in your life do you feel like maybe you've compromised too much? Maybe it's just been unconscious. We could call it that, right? Unconscious compromise. Where are you unconscious about the decisions that are happening? and you're compromising in a way that doesn't feel good. So how can we make it conscious? Where in your life does that need to happen? I'd love to hear what you have to say and what you think about this conscious compromise conversation. So I hope you have a happy Sunday. I hope your Saturday was great. I hope you have a happy Sunday. I'm going to do some more walking, and we'll talk soon. Take care.